opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. Welcome inside a brand new week of Running Point. Today is Monday, November 6th. I am Anthony Hartwig, your host, and we are at Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in the top right-hand corner of the screen right there in Austin Town. They go the extra mile for you. We try to do the same here on this show every single day. Gonna have a good show today. We're gonna recap all the weekend action. Of course, we had football playoffs. We had soccer playoffs. It's always been weird that they call playoffs in football and then tournament in basketball and everything else, volleyball, soccer, but soccer tournaments and volleyball tournament games as well. And then obviously I'm going to talk a little bit about our volleyball all-star game too. It's going to be a fun Monday show. And then officially tomorrow, we're starting basketball previews. There's no rest for the weary here at YSN. We put a bow on soccer and volleyball. Still got a couple of football games left, but we go right into our transition as we start talking to a bunch of basketball coaches. We have, I think, 5 or 6 that me and Ty are kind of tackling tonight, and our schedule this week is booked with a lot of basketball coaches that we're going to be interviewing in the mornings and the nights and everything like that. So this week on Running Point, be prepared for basketball coaches everywhere, whether it be you're going to hear from me a lot, you're going to hear from Ty a lot, you're going to hear from me and Ty together a lot. We are kind of putting our heads together to get as many basketball coaches a season preview as humanly possible, and we're going to be playing them for you all this week on Running Point. So tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, happy day. I couldn't resist that joke, but we will definitely be doing basketball previews, and we're transitioning to hoop season, boys and girls basketball. It sounds like, oh man, it's still a while out. No. Girls basketball starts the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I believe that's the 22nd. In reality, that's just over 2 weeks away. Like it's right there. It's right on the corner. So we don't have a lot of time to get these seasons previewed, and we're going to be doing that. We're going to be tackling that a lot throughout the next couple of weeks of Running Point in between this little transition era between fall and winter sports. So that's what to look forward to. But for today, since we don't have a basketball coach yet, we'll have a bunch of them by tomorrow when we go on. We are going to just recap everything that happened, recap some of the fall sports seasons, recap the volleyball all-star game, and have a lot of fun with that. So I'm going to pull up the YSN scoreboard, and our first thing is first, we're going to go over the scores and the breakdowns of the matchups in Friday's football playoff action. We had some teams advance, some teams unfortunately had their season come to an end, as is the deal with every postseason. So let me bring up the scoreboard on ysnlive.com. Brought to you, as always, by Burnett Pools, Spas, and Hot Tubs. If you go and you scroll up to the top of that scoreboard, you'll see their logo. I'll do it for you right now. Boom. This YSN scoreboard, great tool for our fans, whether you're at a game yourself or you're watching one of our broadcasts. Either way, you don't want to look away too long. You want to be able to quickly check scores, and this is a great way to do it. These scoreboards are live updated, so you don't have to wait until midnight for a final score to come in. We do a very diligent job. Our YSN team behind the scenes, there are several people that put their heads together that make sure this scoreboard is as live updated as possible. Obviously, we're not at every game every night, so we try to do as much as possible live updated. And so this is a great tool for our fans. Go to the scoreboard, ysnlive.com/scores is where you can find it, and you can find the scores of all the teams around the YSN family that you would desire. It is all presented by Burnett Pools, Spas, and Hot Tubs. We go with football, and it is Walsh Jesuit against Austintown Fitch to lead us off in the Friday football recap. And we knew this game was going to be tough for Austintown Fitch. Every division you go up, the top teams get a little bit even better, bigger, deeper, more talented. And this Walsh team is a very good one, and Fitch was going to have to go on the road and get the win. But a couple of things I think Fitch did really well. You can see their offense kind of moved the ball pretty well. They had moments where they gave Walsh's defense plenty of problems, but the deal was for Fitch, and I said this on Friday, they were going to have to stop the run, and they couldn't. Walsh seemed like they were doing everything they wanted at the line of scrimmage against Fitch's defense, and this defensive front for Austintown Fitch just could not stand up to the line of Walsh Jesuit, and the Warriors were able to run a lot on the Falcons, and I think that was the end of the nail in the coffin. The ability to control the line of scrimmage for Walsh was kind of like the end of the road. So Fitch does end their season with a very tough loss on the road to Walsh Jesuit. The final score there, 58-21. We want to congratulate Fitch on a great season. We know there was a lot of adversity that Fitch had to get through this year, a lot of noise outside of the program, that they had to kind of find a way to unify themselves. And I think Coach TJ Parker did an amazing job at keeping everything inside the locker room. And with a lot of these teams, I think coaches don't talk about enough because what they have to go through. They don't like to let their shields down a little bit and tell you how much outside noise can really damage a team. You see a lot of coaches try to keep it inner circle, right? This is our team. Anything outside of this locker room doesn't matter. Any noise outside of this locker room doesn't matter. And it's easier said than done because it's really hard to do that. But Fitch, I think, especially we saw that midway point of the season, really did that really well. I think I saw a much more unified team after that tough loss to in the middle of the season. I can't remember who they lost. They got beat up that 1 week, 42-7. Everyone, Massillon, Washington. Sorry, that blanked my mind for a minute. But when they lost to Massillon, Washington, after that, I think you saw that team could have gone one or two ways, right? They could have dismantled and just kind of broke apart and pointed fingers, because that was a loss where they quite frankly got embarrassed a little bit. I mean, it was 42-7. You don't want to go through losses like that. But after that game, they went the opposite way, and I think that's all coaching. I think that's all coaching. When you can bounce back after a loss, you can come back out, not point fingers, get together as a team, as a unit, as a brotherhood, and get things done. And they were able to punch their way into the playoffs. They had a big win in Week 10 over Warren Harding. Maybe would have gotten him a host, but it didn't work out that way. And unfortunately, they just ran into a really good team in Walsh Jesuit. No, nothing to hang your hat on there. We go to the next game. Hoban. Man, we kind of knew these first two rounds of the playoffs were going to be all bets were off for the Knights. They're just head and shoulders above most of the teams in their division, and they win this one 41-7 over Barberton. No magic to be found for Barberton on this night. What can you say about Hoban other than just absolute dominance? And one of the things that I wanted to see that we saw at Hoban on Friday was a much quicker start. They weren't sitting in a 7-7 or a 7-0 or one of those games after a halftime, where we saw a lot of the games this year, even the ones that they ended up winning by a lot. It was close at halftime. It was close after one quarter. They just couldn't get off to that very quick start. And this time around, not so much. They were having control of this game from the jump, and they kind of set this tone very, very early against a Barberton team that came in not known for their defense. I mean, their defense was not the strength of this football team, and Hoban took it to them, and they let that really good Barberton offense only 7 points. So The Knights are a great job. They advanced into the regional semifinals. One of the thrillers of the night, Ursuline and Canfield, comes down to Ursuline's last possession in the fourth quarter, and it's Christian Lynch that they go to down in the red zone. He punches it in the end zone to give Ursuline that go-ahead touchdown. Canfield gets the ball back. They get it. They actually moved the ball pretty well, considering they were in a very tough spot. They had to go the length of the field with, I don't believe they had a timeout left, and there was very, very few time remaining. So they get down to about the 38-yard line of Ursuline, and to have one play to the end zone, that was pretty impressive by Canfield to get it there. If they were like the upper level football team, college or pros, that 38-yard line would be getting into field goal position. When you do that with a minute to go and no timeouts, that's pretty dang impressive that they were able to get that far into Ursuline territory. But unfortunately, in high school, 38-yard line, not quite field goal range yet for most of those kickers, and they had to just settle for the Hail Mary. It did not work, and Ursuline escapes a scary one with the reigning state champions, and they do get revenge on the team that knocked them out of the playoffs last year. So that test has been accomplished, and the Irish are moving on. We will go to the first couple rows here, then we'll scroll over to these last ones when we're done, like we always do if this is the first time watching the recaps on Running Point. When we look at the scoreboard, we like to do the first three rows and then scroll over to the final row. So we look at Niles. They went down to Mineral Lake Catholic, and Mineral Lake Catholic gets the win of 35-21 in the final score there. And, you look at this game, and Niles' defense had played so well the last couple of weeks. So Mineral Lake Catholic had a good game plan. They executed it well. And even though Niles' offense was still rolling and was able to move the ball well against Mineral Lake Catholic's defense, their offense just could not quite – their defense, they could not quite get enough stops. Mineral Lake Catholic gets the win. And going on the road and get defensive stops in the playoffs, not always easy. It's not always easy. So Niles, great season, great run. Antoine Gardner is one of the best players that we've seen this season, and he deserves a lot of credit for bringing Niles from 2-8 last year to now a playoff team, 7 wins this year. The turnaround that Niles put together, very good. Coach Perry deserves a lot of credit too. Congratulations to the Dragons on a really good turnaround from one season to the next, and we hope their future is just as bright as it was this season. We go on to the next one. We knew this game was going to be good, right? Struthers and Poland met each other in week 10. It went to overtime. Struthers went for 2. They missed it. They lost 28-27. This time around, a much lower scoring game. I went on all the different options that I could see happening on Friday. And of course, these teams picked the one option I didn't even see coming, which was a absolute defensive, just, lockdown kind of game. I thought, either one offense is going to make adjustments, both offenses were going to make adjustments, or we were going to see the same kind of game where it was just like chaos, turnovers, big plays, just taking advantage of other teams' mistakes here and now and then. But they went with option D, which was play really, really solid defense. Defense make the adjustments to what we saw in week 10 there, and defenses rule the storyline, and that's what it was. Struthers makes a defensive stand late in the game to win this one 14-9. They get revenge. They go to Poland, knock out the Bulldogs, and Struthers is still playing. They will play Mineral Lake Catholic next week. Garrettsville Garfield, we kind of knew. Look, you don't want to say underseeded because it's all based on numbers, so no one's voting for Garrettsville Garfield to be the 5 seed. But at the same time, we kind of were smirking at this one. We said, well, Garrettsville Garfield might be the 5 seed, but they're not the 5 seed. Like, everyone knew they were much better than 5 seed. And they went to 4th seeded Harrison Central, and they kind of proved it. This game was over before it started. I mean, Garrettsville Garfield, first drive of the game, just put their foot down. Everyone knew this was going to be Garfield's day, and they went down 1 on the gray turf. I love watching this broadcast. One, the crew did a great job. Tom O'Brien, Chris Ziegler, congratulations on a great call. But I loved it because it's a great turf field, right? So when you're watching it, it's like you're watching a ESPN Classic throwback. It was like Ysn Classic. between Harrison Central and Garrettsville Garfield made us think that Ysn was around back in the 50s, and we were showing a classic playoff game between the two teams. If you watch the offenses, you would have thought it was a game from the 50s because Garrettsville Garfield still runs that wishbone offense. So you're sitting there thinking, well, maybe it is a high school football game from the 50s. Who knows? But I love the turf down there. I love the broadcast, and it was kind of trippy to flip back between your color programming and then the Harrison Central black and white field. But what a great game! What a great venue! What a great facility! I think we have to give our hats off, even though we weren't rooting for you as a non-YSN school. Harrison Central had a really good facility, an awesome press box. I heard nothing but good things out of how hospitable they were to our crew. So we want to thank Harrison Central for that and congratulate them on a great season. But Garrettsville Garfield, what a football team! They are barreling into the next round of the playoffs, and I think they're one of the most dangerous under 4 seeds that we have probably in the state when you think about it. I mean, not a lot of 5 seeds are saying they have a chance to go and win the region, but I think Garrettsville Garfield is definitely one of those teams that is under 4 when you talk about seeding, and still probably in the conversation of a team that you wouldn't be shocked if they went and won the whole region. I know they have a big test with Perry, and then if they beat Perry, probably South Range the next week. But I think Garfield has an excellent chance to do both of those things. We talk about South Range and what another dominant week they had. Last week, they had a pretty hard test from their opponent last week, but this time around, from the jump, this was Raiders' ball game. Turnover on the first drive, but after that, just everything that Raiders wanted to do, they were able to do on defense. Ridgewood could not do anything they wanted to do. And you look at this, and I keep saying that the Raiders get better every week. You know, they had a little bit of a shaky round one of the playoffs. They're better the next week. They are wonderfully coached. And what I like about Coach Rock and his staff and what they're doing really well this year is the week-to-week transitions, right? You're never going to see this Raider team make the same mistake that they made the week before. They're getting better every single week, which means, one, they have a coaching staff that is really good at breaking down film, really good at picking apart the little things they're not doing right and correcting them. But then, two, they have kids that are buying into that. It is hard for a 9-1 in the regular season team to be told you're still not doing things all perfect, right? Especially when you're talking about kids. Like, I don't care what program you're in. I don't care how successful the program has been. These are still kids that are 15 to 18 years old. And to sit there when they're 9-1, they won it in the 8, and tell them, like, hey, these are the things you're doing wrong. These are the things we need to correct. There are a lot of kids that aren't receptible to that when you're succeeding the way you are. And South Range has a group of kids that are very coachable. They understand that we're not doing everything perfectly. We need to improve things. And every week, if I see something from South Range, it's like, that needs to be corrected. You know it's corrected the next week. They get into the lab, they work on it, they bust their butt in practice, and they correct whatever they did not do well the week before. And that's what I love about the South Range team this year. Every week, it's like a better team. They have never taken a backslide. I've never seen them this year look worse the week next, like than they did the week prior. And I think that's a testament to not just the coaching staff, but like I said, the players for buying into that mentality that we always need to get better. That's hard for young athletes to get sometimes, especially when you're succeeding the way you are. You got to set that bar and say, we need to get better all the time, always improving. And I love that from South Range. They're going to have to improve even more because as they get deeper in the playoffs, the teams get better and the mistakes get magnified. So South Range looking good, 35-0 over Ridgewood. I broke my rule. I scrolled over. I'm sorry. You know what? While we're over there, we'll just do it. 31-28 West Branch. They beat Streetsboro. This was a kickoff return for a touchdown that won the game. Can you think of it? Well, it did. I mean, like it put them as a go-ahead touchdown. There was still a chance for Streetsboro to come and answer. They didn't, obviously. But the game-winning touchdown was a kickoff return for a touchdown from Joey Jackson. Can you ask for anything better? I mean, this West Branch team just finds ways to win. Have their first 2 playoff games been the prettiest in the world? No, they haven't. They had a heck of a scare from Woodridge in round 1. Streetsboro. We knew they could score. Their quarterback is electric, and they gave West Branch a heck of a fight. But at the end of the day, I applaud teams that find ways to win. Yeah, you're not going to blow out people in the playoffs. And West Branch finding ways to beat Streetsboro and advance 31-28. Final score there. United, I thought, on paper, this didn't look like a matchup that United was going to have trouble with, but it goes the opposite way. Cuyahoga Heights comes in with an excellent game plan. They executed well, and I thought when I was watching this game, and I was able to flip in on it every now and then with our playoff pass, it felt like the thing that Cuyahoga Heights was doing really well, and this has worked in the past against United, is they were physical with the receivers at the line of scrimmage. This United team likes to get kids in space, right? They like to get their athletes one-on-one in space so they can catch the ball and then make a move. But there was very good press coverage on the Cuyahoga Heights, secondary. They were able to get physical with these very speedy receivers from United, and they weren't able to really get comfortable in the offense. And I think Cuyahoga Heights did a great job doing that. We hadn't seen a team really be able to consistently do that against United this year. Even their one loss, which was to Lisbon, you can attribute that one loss that United had to more self-inflicted wounds. I think that it wasn't necessarily like Lisbon was dominating them physically. They had a couple of turnovers, they had a couple of opportunities, and Lisbon had great props for forcing them to do that. I'm not saying Lisbon played bad. Lisbon played great that game, but it wasn't the formula of this is how we beat United. It wasn't what we saw teams do to them last year that were able to beat United. So it wasn't that same formula. It wasn't that same blueprint. And this Cuyahoga Heights team this year in the playoffs, they had that formula. They were very, very physical. They didn't let anyone have space to move in the open field. And because of that, United just couldn't get those explosive plays that they're used to getting. So 28-7, United falls. We want to congratulate United on a great season, though. 9 wins in the regular season and a great job of the EOAC and running that conference. And United did a great job this year. So I know a lot of people thought they would have a little bit of a down year with the talent they did lose from a year ago, but Luke Courtney, one of the great versatile football players we have on YSN, the 1 week he scored every single point for United because he kicks too. So what a great season for the Eagles. We commend them, and we wish them the best of luck in their future, whether it be seeing them on the basketball court, maybe seeing them on the baseball field in the spring. We love seeing United athletes, and we will definitely keep an eye on what they can do in their future athletic endeavors. We'll go to the next one, Middle Ridge. How about this? How about the way Middle Ridge is playing in the playoffs? This is their second road victory as they go in and beat Rootstown 17-9 in the final is the final score. And the 2 games that Middle Ridge has won, they've been defensively just very, very good. It's a good Jackson Milton offense they were able to shut down completely last week. And this Rootstown offense is very good too, and they held them to 9 points. So Middle Ridge's defense is winning them games. They won this game. Offense did enough with 17 points, some big plays, but their defense was the one that absolutely won this game. I want to give a shout out to Middle Ridge's Owen Shingledecker. What a great game he had under center for Middle Ridge. You need good quarterback play to win playoff games. I know a lot of people have been giving Ian Herb all the light in the world, which he should. He's a great football player. But I felt like Owen Shingledecker played a very good game for Middle Ridge under center this time around for the Rams. So congratulations to Middle Ridge. They have another chance to have another upset, right? They have another chance for another upset. They will play Mogador, who's up next. Mogador beat Pymatuning Valley 29-8. And this was close for a little bit. It went the way you thought it would. It was a very physical, very low-scoring game. It just felt like, at the end of the day, Mogador was just a little bit more conditioned, a little bit more able to play consistently at that level of physicality. And you saw in the second half them just put some separation, because I felt like, honestly, this Pymatuning Valley just ran out of gas. They could not play that brand of football against that kind of team consistently for 4 quarters. And that's why Mogador is so good. Mogador wears you down. They wear you down. They're not going to be that high flying team that gets off to a 21-0 start in the first quarter. But I tell you, especially old school football, these guys will tell you if they played back in the 80s and 70s, like football still, in my opinion, is a game where your job is to break your opponent's will. And I know that sounds like very harsh and very dark, but like at the end of the day, you want to get your opponent to a point when they don't want to line up and push you anymore. Break their will. And I think Mogador just does a really good job of that with their brand of football. They push you around. You're sitting in the fourth quarter, you're bruised, you're hurt. You don't want to line up against them anymore. You pack it in and you just say, you know what, we can't hold up anymore. And a great effort from Pymatuning Valley, but at the end of the day, Mogador just makes them run out of gas and they win 29-8, the final score there. Very good Danville team up next against Springfield. We saw Danville rock McDonald's World the week before, and this week Danville proves their might again with a win over a very good Springfield team. But 35-6, Danville wins. Their defense is holding some of their really good offenses down to very below average totals. So Danville looks very, very impressive. Can they look just as impressive against the Rockets this week, I should say. That's what we're going to see, because Lowville is moving on with a 32-7 win over Mineral Ridge. The first meeting was very, very, very close, and it was actually Lowville's only loss of the season. This time around, the tables get turned dramatically, and not only does Lowville win, they win emphatically. And I think, the first couple drives of the game, you could tell this is going to be one of those nights for Western Reserve where if they were going to win, they were going to have to battle through things that's not going their way. Like they got a couple of penalties, a ball that Luke Henning makes that throw 99.9% of the time. This time off his back foot a little bit, doesn't get enough of the ball on it. Michael Balone picks him off. Things like that. You could just tell like this night was not going to go the way that Western Reserve wanted to. So if they were going to win, it was going to be that one where they were just battling the elements, but they just couldn't do it. They couldn't battle the ball bouncing the wrong way. Lowville took advantage early, took a big lead, and then kind of packed it in and said, we're going to win this game. We're going to control the clock the rest of the way. And I think Lowville's running attack, who doesn't get nearly enough credit, was the victors in this game. I think their ability to run the ball, especially once they built a decent lead, really solidified the win. So I know Michael Balone in the high flying passing attack of Lowville gets a whole lot of credit, but I want to shout out their offensive line. I want to shout out their running back room. They did a great job solidifying this win after they got the big lead, because Western Reserve can score in a hurry if you give them the chance to, but those long drives, that ball control, made it impossible. Once Lowville got that big lead, this game was just locked in, because Western Reserve, quite frankly, didn't have the ball enough to come back from the deficit that they were down. So that one's 32-7, the final score. Lowville advances. They'll play Danville in the playoffs. We will obviously talk more and preview those playoff games on Friday. We have, I believe, 8 teams playing in this round, 8 YSN games, I should say, playing. And then last but not least, Mohawk gets the 42-0 win over Burrell, and Mohawk advances in after the first round of the WPIL Pennsylvania playoffs. So congratulations to Mohawk. Big win there, 42-0. And that finishes your Friday night scoreboard. We'll go to Saturday. Not as good of a day for YSN. Unfortunately, we saw our chances at state in one fell swoop on one day all get erased. I thought Canfield, especially girls soccer, had a really, really good chance of getting to state. But I was talking to, Matt Marr, who did the game last night, and I asked him, I said, was Canfield's offense off? Were they not having a great day, or was Bay Village that good? He said emphatically, without hesitation, he said Bay was just having that good of a day. And I will believe Matt Marr, because he's been calling Canfield all season long. He knows what they look like when they're rolling. And he says that Canfield wasn't playing bad. Bay was just playing really, really good. And they shut down this very good Canfield offense that had been doing anything they wanted to pretty much all season long in an undefeated season. And Bay Village, though, they get the win, 2-0, the final score over Canfield. They shut out the Cardinals for the first time this year, and they also hand the Cardinals their first loss of the season and the last loss of the season, one step away from a state playoff berth. Champion. They were in their first regional final, and they went into a very good Akron Manchester team who was undefeated. Kind of very similar numbers to Champion. And their defense hadn't given up more than one goal in one match all season. Champion scores 2 on them. Unfortunately, Manchester was just up for the task a little bit more. They got 2 second-half goals, and they beat Champion 3-2. Got to give props to Manchester. They played the second half with 10 people because one of their players got ejected. Is actually their goaltender. So they got the win over Champion after their goaltender got ejected from a game from a red card. So to do that and to still come out with a win against a very good offensive team like Champion, obviously we want to just tip our hats a little bit to Akron Manchester. But man, are we bummed that both of our soccer teams got eliminated. This actually ends a very big stretch, I believe 7 straight years coming into this season where we put one team at least in the state playoffs in the Northeast Ohio area, and for soccer this year, unfortunately, all of our teams are eliminated before the state tournament starts. Crestview volleyball, we knew it was going to be a high mountain to climb, and they fall to Mineral Lake Catholic. They do get a set though, and I know Crestview is extremely happy that they were able to show that they belong on that stage, get a set win. 26-24 in set 3. But people have been asking me about this all season long. Like, how good is this Mineral Lake Catholic team? Got to see them live last year. They were really, really good. But I wouldn't have said last year they were the best high school volleyball team I'd ever seen live. I will say emphatically this year, and I said it on the broadcast, this is the best high school volleyball team I have ever seen live in Mineral Lake Catholic. They were equal to a small college team. Everything they were doing, I think there are Division III college volleyball teams that team would beat. They'd probably win state in probably every division. You know what? They'd win state in every division. I haven't seen every Division I volleyball team. I get it. Division I volleyball is really, really good. But the way I saw Mineral Lake Catholic be able to just do everything, they were running slides, they were running shoots, they were running all these different offenses that they wanted to run. They were getting a system off of Crestview serve almost every time. They were out of system swings. They were just everything that you see out of college level volleyball, and you kind of understand that it's a step above. Mineral Lake Catholic was doing, and they were doing consistently. They were really good. They have 4 Division I athletes, 4 Division I volleyball players on that team that are already committed to going on to play at Division I schools. And not only were they 4, but they were 4 in different assets of the game, right? So you had your libero for Mineral Lake Catholic. She's going to Colgate University. Their setter's going to Campbell. And they have 2 hitters that are both going D1 for Niagara and Wright State. So you have hitters that are going D1. You have defense that's going D1 to libero. And then you have your setter that's also going D1. So not only do you have those 4 athletes, but they're the 3 parts of the game. So you have someone that can always pass the ball almost perfectly. You have a setter that's just running a great offense, very fast. And then you have 2 really high-level hitters that are D1. And I'll just say, I think their other hitters were just as good. You look at their stats. They have 4 hitters this year that have above 100 kills. They don't have one girl that's lighting it up. Their girl that's going to Wright State, Katie Salco, she had like 207 kills. I mean, like 250 kills, somewhere around there. And going into that game, another one with 207, one with 173, and then another one with like 115. So it wasn't like Salco was just dominating all season where she was getting 400 kills like we see some of our YSN girls get. But at the same time, when you have 4 girls that are all above 100, that's just brutal to try to defend because you don't know where it's coming from. Their right side attack was killing Crestview. I thought Crestview actually did a pretty good job for most of the game, not letting Salco take over and get into a rhythm. She did in that 4 set. We saw what she could do when they started to set her consistently. But for the most part, I think she's our best hitter. And I think Crestview did a pretty good job keeping her out of rhythm. The problem was you keep her out of rhythm, but hey, let's go to the right side. Let's get a couple of those girls involved. Let's go through the middle. Let's go to the back row attack. They had so many options they could go to, and because they were always in system, they could go to those options whenever they wanted to. It was just extremely high level volleyball. It's the best high school volleyball team I've ever seen in person. And what can you do? What can you do against that? I mean, like at the end of the day, volleyball is a sport where if you're outmatched, it's really hard to pull off an upset. Unless the other team's not playing their potential, but you have to win 3 sets, right? Which means you have to be the unequivocal better team that day 3 times. It's 75 points. Unless you win the 5th set, then it's 65 points. But that means you have to be the best team that day, hands down. You can't just win a set. Like Crestview was the best team in 1 set, but they'd have to do that 2 more times. And to do that against a team that's just, I mean, there's no way to put it. They're deeper than you. They're better than you in a lot of facets. And what can you do, right? And I'm not going to feed into the energy of this isn't fair and Middle Lake Catholic shouldn't be in this tournament or whatever, because what's not fair about it? They're just a really good volleyball team. You're not going to punish them for being a really good volleyball team, but at the same time, it's almost like if you're Crestview, like what are you supposed to do? You can't just you can't scheme against it. You can't you just don't match up. You have to hope that they have an off day. That's the only thing Crestview could have done, really. And they didn't. Middle Lake Catholic did not have an off day at all. In fact, the 3 sets they won, Middle Lake Catholic was making Crestview look like most of the teams that Crestview played this season looked like when they play Crestview. It was just you could see the difference, the gap there. And it's not a knock on Crestview to say you don't have 6 girls that could all go and play Division I volleyball wherever they want to play. Like, because not everyone has that. Not everyone can get that. So it's not a knock to say, hey, you just don't have 7 girls on the team that can all go and play really high level Division I volleyball. That's not a knock. But the fact is, if you don't and they're on their game, you're probably not going to win that game. And you can't just kick them out of the tournament because they're a really good volleyball team. I remember one of my favorite sports movies, and I know I'm getting off a tangent, but it's because we have time. We don't have any interviews today. We'll have a bunch of them the rest of the week because we're doing our basketball previews starting this week. But it's one of my favorite sports movies is When the Game Stands Tall, and it's about De La Salle High School in California that went on the longest winning streak of any football team ever. I think any sports team really, like 150 straight wins. The movie's actually about how they respond to losing that streak and then building a new one, going and winning the state championship. But in the early stages of the movie, they win a state championship. The streak is still going. They're in a conference meeting with a bunch of other coaches that just can't beat this team. And these coaches are saying it's not fair. We can't play these guys. They have to be cheating because they're winning. And they're just like, hey, why are we being penalized for having a program that's good enough that people want to come play for us? We're not recruiting. We're going in the letters of the rule. Middle Lake Catholic is no different now than open enrollment. They have a program that people want to come play for. And before they were Division III, they were Division II, and they were still very 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 good up in Division II. This is their second year in Division III. They won a state championship last year. They got to the Division II state championship a year ago, lost in the state championship 2 years ago, I should say, lost in that state championship game. They come the last year, they win Division III. They're gonna win Division III state championship this year, barring something ridiculously unimaginable happening. I'm not going to sit here and say like they shouldn't be in the tournament or they're cheating or they're not. They're just a really, really good volleyball team that's blessed with a lot of good talent, and they're not doing anything out of the letter of the law. So I'm not going to feed into that energy that says it's not fair or it's not right that they're playing in the tournament. It's just you're going to run into a team like that eventually. Every state championship team has players that are going to play high level volleyball. You're going to run into them eventually. It sucks for Crestview that it keeps you running into that region. They're in the best region in the state of Ohio, bar none. The Barberton Regional has produced a state championship qualifier the last 4 years. Before it was Lake Catholic, it was Independence. Independence in the Barberton region, who was there this year too, they went to 3 state championships in a row. They lost all those state championships in 5 sets, but they were there 3 years in a row, and Crestview had to go and try to beat them. Almost did once. Remember, set 5. They went to set 5 the last year that Independence run. 5th set, they were up 13-9 and lost it. So you could argue like Crestview can get to that level. You have to keep knocking on the door. You have to keep getting there. You have to keep showing your girls that level of volleyball. But at the end of the day, and I was talking to some coaches after, if you don't see that consistently, you can't be prepared for it. That kind of offense where they can set the one balls, they can run slides, they can run shoots. And because volleyball is a sport where there's no holiday breaks where you can go and travel. Basketball has Christmas break. They can go down to Cleveland. They can go down to Sandusky. They can go to these little tournaments where they see extremely high level basketball and expose themselves to it. Softball, baseball has the spring break where we see teams go down to Myrtle Beach. We see teams go down to Tennessee. They expose themselves to very, very high level softball, baseball. Volleyball is not a sport where there's no breaks in fall where you can say, hey, let's go and play Toledo Christian. Let's go and play Middle Lake Catholic. Let's go and play Notre Dame Cathedral Latin. Like, we can't get those in the season. So for a team like Crestview, who already has to travel quite a bit for their league, I mean, you look at where they have to go in these MVAC games, Warren Champion, Newton Falls. These are kind of high travel league games. They can't really go and travel to an NDCL or Akron and Canton area team where that's where the best volleyball is in our region. They can't go up there and play them during the season. They play the best teams in our area, which is great. And this isn't a knock to our area, but they're just not at that level. They're not running slides. They're not running, these intricate offenses that Crestview's going to see if they want to win a regional. And that's just the reality. You got to expose yourself to that level of volleyball so your defense is ready for it. And it felt like, especially the first set, like there were some Crestview players that just didn't even know how to respond to a girl coming from the middle, sliding over around the center, and then hitting from the right side pin. They didn't know how to move to that situation because they don't. There's no scout team. You can't run on scout team. You can't ask your JV players to go out there and run a slide. You can't copy it in practice. There's not a great way to prepare for it unless you see people consistently that can do it. And unfortunately, right now in the state of volleyball in our area, there's just not a lot of ways to get ready for that kind of volleyball. Our area volleyball is very good. It's a lot better than it was, 7-10 years ago. We're getting better and better. Our clubs are getting better. Our club coaches are going into the coaching world in high school. So they're bringing up how to teach that level of volleyball. But it's a process. It is a process. We're going to get there. But right now, we are just a little still behind in the area of that level of volleyball, where you can see consistently these kids coming in and doing the things on offense that Middle Lake Catholic was able to do. And that's just the reality. That being said, that'll do it for our recap. What I want to do before we go, though, I kind of got on a rant about Crestview and Middle Lake Catholic. So I apologize for that, but I still have a little bit of time. I do want to recap the All-Star game that we had last night at Westminster. What a awesome event this was. We started working on this All-Star game and prepping for it about halfway through the volleyball season. Like, we wanted to really get ahead of it. We knew these All-Star events are monsters to kind of organize and deal with, and we wanted the volleyball one to be the biggest one yet. And it was. We had 61 girls committed to that volleyball game from 50 different schools. It was the biggest volleyball. I'm going to take the score off so you can I'm not stare at that anymore. But it was the biggest volleyball all-star game in the country. 61 girls representing 50 schools there. And when you think about the scope of that, that did not happen overnight. And I want to give a shout out to the people that were in weekly meetings for about a month and a half talking about this all-star game and getting it rolling. One, I want to give a shout out to Quinn Pushkar because he was kind of the liaison between YSN ourselves and the ADs and the coaches, making sure everyone knew what was happening early. Everyone was aware that we were doing it. We were putting it on. So he was kind of the guy that made sure that the people that needed to know that knew what they needed to know, right? The ADs to coaches. He did that. He did really a good job keeping them all in the loop. And he's not a volleyball guy. He'll be the first to say, like, he's a basketball coach. He's focusing on basketball. He doesn't know volleyball. So he was kind of like, I'll do whatever I have to do. Just put the words of what I have to say, and I'll go do it. So he was a trooper, and he was really an integral part in making sure that All-Star game happened. I want to thank Chris Sigler. Of course, he was a part of that meeting every week, and he was such an organized person. Like, he is such a dude that kept everything that was organized about that game was because Chris Sigler kept like reminding us, like, hey, we need to do this. We need to do this in this way. We need to keep this organized. Keep this in a spreadsheet. Keep this in your minds. And, I'm not the most organized person. I'll admit that. I am not the most organized. I'm more of a reactionary, let's just go do it. Chris Sigler is really good at keeping YSN in an organized kind of fashion, keeping us on track and keeping us, going on the right way. So he did a great job. Ty Bartell, the man who called the game last night with me on ysnlive.com, he was a great help in just knowing volleyball. He called a lot of volleyball. He saw a lot of volleyball. He probably saw more teams than anybody else outside of myself. So he was a great help in just backing me up with these player choices, with the postseason awards, with the volleyball conversations that we were able to have as a team. Ty Bartell was one of the great people that were able to have that conversations with and try to bounce back ideas back and forth. The formatting of the game was a big discussion. How many sets should we play? How do we get these girls in the game? There are 60 girls, so every coach was given the chance of, here's 30 girls, get them in, have them all in at the same amount of time, make it fair, give everyone a good shake. And the coaches did a good job of that. But I think also Ty Bartell deserves a really good pat on the back for being a part of that discussion on what the format should look like in the sport of volleyball, because he knew the sport of volleyball. He knows the sport of volleyball. He knows what it should look like. So there was a lot of conversation with him and me going back and forth on what that should look like. So a lot of the smoothness of the volleyball game, the interest went to credit Ty Bartell with that. Got to thank DJ Yoakley, of course, because he's the one that went to Westminster. He's the one that got it there. What a great venue. He's the one that got the charities involved. He was the ones that did everything logistically that needed to be done to get this all-star game going. And he also trusted us to do everything else. So we got to thank DJ Yoakley for everything that he was able to do to make sure this all-star game happened. It was a passion project for him. He always wants these all-star games to happen, and he does whatever it takes to get it to happen. So want to thank him for everything that he obviously did, everything he continues to do for the area schools. Wouldn't have YSN without DJ. That's pretty cut and dry, right? So every thanks that we get for what we do, we have to pass the buck to DJ, because obviously he's putting in so much work to make sure we're able to do it. So the all-star game went off very smoothly with him. All those other guys, everyone else at YSN that came out and helped, there were volunteers there. They did things. I even had some guys shagging balls, and they were like, what do you mean? I was like, just go chase the volleyballs and bring them back to the bed. And they were troopers for doing that. They were putting their bodies on the line, chasing down some really hard hit volleyballs during warm-ups. So I want to thank them for that. Our player runners, our Matt Marr and Jordan Barber organized the check-in so well, and they were able to handle that with care and make the girls, the first face they see was Matt Marr and Jordan Barber, and they both did a really good job being organized and making sure the girls were checked in and everything logistically was taken care of there, because obviously we don't want anyone sneaking in or falling into the cracks. So we had everyone checked in, everyone marked off at that point, and Matt Marr and Jordan Barber did a great job with that. With those thanks being given out, I also want to thank the coaches that gave up their time on a Sunday night to come out and make this experience what it was. Without them, the volleyball would not happen smoothly. They were the ones that figured out the rotations. They're the ones that took the 30-minute warm-ups and said 30 minutes is what we gave them. And they worked together a rotation. They worked together setter and hitter kind of communication. That volleyball was high-level volleyball, but only because of the 30-minute warm-ups that each coach had, and the fact that they were able to get those teams organized and communicate and have the setters on point with the hitters in just 30 minutes is a testament to those coaches. And they did it all just because they love the sport of volleyball. They love the community kids. They love their own team, of course, but all those coaches want to see the community of volleyball get better in the area, and that's why they did it. So Tyler Allen from Camel Memorial, love his energy, love what he's done for that whole Camel community. He was a no-brainer to ask to come, so I want to thank him. Man, Jennifer Martin, I love her volleyball mind. I love talking to her about the sport. She's a great coach, and obviously Columbiana had a great season, winning the EOAC for the first time and getting the furthest in the tournament that they've ever gotten to the district championship. So I want to thank her for her time and giving up her day. And she had to coach against her own players, which was fun to see. Coach Walters from Girard, I will say the best volleyball mind that we got. I mean, he can just talk volleyball and the intricacies and the strategy of the sport for forever. I think he had a lot to do with why that team was so smooth and why everything worked out so well. And then Alicia Howard, of course, from Crestview. Tried to get her last year. We had to get her this year. And she's just, man, what a passionate coach. What a coach that truly cares about each and every player that comes through the area. Wants everyone to succeed. Everyone on that staff does. So I want to thank all those four coaches, Coach Howard, Coach Walters, Coach Allen, and Coach Martin, for giving up their time to make sure that experience was everything that it could be for those athletes. And then thank everyone that came, right? We raised $1,500 plus for Sleep in Heavenly Peace, Trumbull County, which is what we want to do with these all-star games. We always want to make them a way to help out great charities, great local charities. And we were able to do that last night with a great turnout. That Westminster bleachers was full. We had a great fan base come up and go all the way to Westminster. And to be honest, sit for a while. I know that's one of the things we talked about was, man, people got here at 2:30. The game didn't start till 4, and then the game went until 6. I know that's a lot of sitting around in volleyball. It's just a necessary evil because you have to have that amount of time for warm-ups, for getting the teams organized and getting the teams to, like I said, play in sync for volleyball. It's not a sport you can just roll out a ball and say play a pickup volleyball game like basketball, like baseball, like softball. So, a little bit more sitting around, but the fans did it. They were awesome. They had a lot of fun times. I want to thank Westminster, of course, for giving us the venue as well and having workers there. And want to thank everyone that was from Westminster that came, the scoreboard operators, the concession stands, the ball runners during the game. Obviously, Coach Tammy from Western Reserve Volleyball. Give her congratulations for not just running this and being there, but also getting into the playoffs the night before. Westminster beat St. Vincent on Saturday night to get themselves into the playoffs. So congratulations to them. Just wonderful all around. Want to thank everybody that even had a small part or touched this all-star game in any way, shape, or form. Thank you all for being able to make it happen. I loved it. I love the sport of volleyball. I loved every moment of it. If I had an opinion, we would have played 10 sets because I could have watched that volleyball forever. So it was great. The players did great. Everything about that was awesome last night. And it was, like I said, the biggest volleyball all-star game in the nation because YSN Nation is so awesome. So we want to thank you for that. We want to appreciate all of our players. We want to congratulate them on a great volleyball season. We put the bow on volleyball. We put the bow on soccer. We still have some football, but this week and next week, going to be a lot of basketball previews. So that'll end this episode of Running Point. But get ready for hoops because Coach's Corners are coming at you fast. Starting tomorrow, we will have Coach's Corners on Running Point every day for the next 2 weeks. And we will be talking a lot of hoops. So get ready for that. We'll be back tomorrow for more than 2. This is Anthony Hartwig. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Enjoy your